Got it. All right. So as I was saying, that this ministry wing task force this is kind of a continuation of something that was a conversation that was beginning and had come to a pretty strong movement as of 2019. But just to give you a sense of this renovation, that we're working with a couple of organizations. So you'll hear their name, you'll see their logos in future conversations. Groth Design Group is the team, and Paul specifically, who is working with us, did the renovations on our sanctuary. So we're very familiar with their design. They're very familiar with us and how we work together, etc. So we're in really good hands. And I'll say there's a lot of people that have said they have a lot of confidence in Paul and from those things. And we're thankful for that. And then Findorf is the construction company that we're working with and partnering with, who will be taking on the actual implementation of the project, whatever that form takes. And just to give you a little bit of a history, I tried to fit it all on one slide, and maybe that was a mistake. I probably could have gone to 2 slides. But back in 2016 to 2018, there was a lot of conversations throughout the congregation about the ministry, what Midvale could be focusing on. And one of the things that came back very strongly was, what do we do with the ministry wing space? Can we look at how we update that and bring that to life? And one of those pieces had to do with its use. Another piece is we've got this beautiful sanctuary that's been remodeled. Is it time to bring that up to speed? So in 2019, we spent some time, there was a task force assembled to evaluate the ministry wing, and started kind of tapping the Groth and looking for a contractor. There was interviews conducted with the staff, with different leaders within the congregation, and groups using the different spaces, both main floor, second floor, basement. And we went into design and came up with some options, and there was a final scope of work. And just before it was could be presented to the congregation and to the for the annual meeting, COVID hit. And so it was sort of just tabled for the time being. Over the last 4 years, some of the things that were in that scope were kind of picked out and implemented. So in 2019, some new commercial grade energy efficient windows were installed on the second floor and here on the first floor. You can see them here in the library. In 2020, I'm reading my own thing. In 2021, there was some work done on the drainage in the basement to make sure that there was some flooding or some leaking and that sort of stuff. So all of that's been taken care of as of last year, and insulation at the same time. And then we kind of kicked off our project to install solar awnings on the south side of the building, and those have just completed as of I think just this past month. And then the other thing that's happened within the last couple of months is the reconvening of this committee to look at what was still in the last proposal, what could we still pick up, what's worth looking at again, and where do we need to kind of rethink things. And so that's what brings us to the conversations we've had as a task force over the last 2 months, and then starting this conversation where we're presenting some of these ideas to the congregation, getting your feedback, getting the questions that matter to you, and then being able to try and answer that more fully, just to make sure that everything that we still want to happen with the space is in alignment with where we were heading. So that's what we're at now. When we look back at the assessment that was done and kind of what was built out, there were really 5 needs that were identified. One was the existing building maintenance. This building, we're coming up on the church's 70th anniversary, but this wing, I think the ministry wing was created and built in 1966. I think we thought, so it's coming up on 60 years. And so There's maintenance, there's roof repair, there's obviously we did the work in the basement to stop the leaking. We also wanted to maximize our building space. There's a few places that are not used as much because they're not quite to the kind of feeling comfortable, or that they're not maximized for use. Areas of comfort, and that specifically around our wanting to be a more opening and comfortable, safe space for people who identify as different genders, or in the LGBTQ space. So we want this place to be more comfortable for that. And so the areas around there are in the bathrooms, and making more kind of non-gendered bathroom spaces for people. We want more sustainable design improvements. So the solar awnings and how we use, or how the heat is managed, or how the conditioning of the space is managed and able to be managed. And then the building aesthetic, that we bring it up to more modern standards and make it a place people feel like we're living in today, and addressing the needs of the community today. So those 5 areas, the existing building maintenance, I mentioned site drainage, repairing damage to existing basement, the roof, the removal of the chimney fireplace, which is in the youth room in the basement. And we'll show those in some plans a little bit later. Upgrading the basement and second floor finishes, repair, upgrade mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, and the removal of hazardous materials. We know that there are hazardous materials in some of the tiles, et cetera. So we need to take care of those if we're going to renovate. So we all know that that's kind of a part of things. We want to make improvements to our second floor classrooms to make them more flexible. And that'll be a theme of this, that we think that these spaces can become more flexible for new ministries, the ministries that exist and that are growing, and then being able to be flexible for whatever ministries we imagine in the future. Improvement to the second floor classrooms, also creating more gathering spaces and bigger spaces upstairs. First floor offices and meeting spaces to kind of meet the current needs of the full-time and part-time staff and volunteers. Improve the space for youth ministry downstairs, and then the AWE storage and storage for quilting, that some of the ministries that need more space to store equipment or materials have that as well. In our comfort areas, we're converting and adding restroom facilities on all floor levels to be more single use, so it can just be and in more convenient spaces, so that we have access where we're at. And then converting designer restroom facilities to be ADA compliant, so that people who of different abilities feel comfortable in these restrooms as well. The building aesthetics, we'll show some examples of that, but a lot of that is still unknown. We haven't gotten to the finishes and stuff yet, and groth will be a big part of that. And then the sustainable building improvements, like we said, it's built in 1966. We've got a lot of older mechanical, electrical, and plumbing that needs to be updated. We've got a flat roof that needs replaced, and some of that needs to happen before we can go to solar panels on the roof. And we've done quite a bit of insulation in some areas, but there's going to be more to do so that our kind of larger gathering spaces don't lose air, or the warm air as easily, or cold air. So I'll just stop here for a second and see if there are any questions or thoughts or feedback on kind of those 5 areas of improvement.
It feels really thorough, would be my feedback.
Awesome. Thank you, Erin. I wasn't on that task force back in 2019, so I'm also impressed. I can say that. So to give you an example of one of the spaces, and you'll see that one of the terms that was used back then was that this was the education wing task force. As we've been looking at this and thinking about it, this isn't just an education project, that this is going to be affecting all levels of this wing, where we do a lot of ministry from there. Yes, there's a lot of education from our Sunday school to our confirmation, but there's also a lot of places for other people to meet, and different groups and committees and external organizations come in and use this space. And so we're sort of broadening that term to the ministry wing rather than just the education wing. But this is an example of some of the finishes that we're thinking about for the upstairs space, so the second floor education space. And if you've been upstairs, then you know that what you won't see here is one of the meeting rooms, and the two bathrooms are kind of removed here. And this wall of kind of windowed wall looks into what is now the music room. And that is an example of one of the flexible walls that can be retracted and pulled back. And that opens up that space to be a larger gathering space for, say, at the beginning or end of Sunday school to have music, or to practice, rehearse some of our Christmas stuff or something like that. So it just gives us some flexibility there. But many of the rooms here and in other spaces would have those flexible spaces. And give you an example of just being a very clear opening space for parents to come in and drop off kids, and for those kids to go back with, go into those spaces, go into their rooms with the shepherds and teachers. And then that, like the curve on the ceiling would be an example of aesthetic changes to improve kind of just how the look and feel is. To the right, that window there is right next to the elevator, which is just off screen. So off to the right is the elevator and the stairway coming up. So we're kind of maybe looking from the stairwell. So if there's any questions on this, the other thing I'll mention is, like, for instance, the window, you see there's sort of like a curve of kind of fogged up glass, or what's the, I don't know what the term is for that. The film or the
it's etched.
So yeah, kind of privacy glass. You'll see to the right, not only is it high up and filling the whole window, but it's very opaque. Whereas if you go to the left, it's partial lower part of the window and it's very transparent. So we have the flexibility to kind of go to different levels of that. You'll also see a lot of the doors that we use, these flexible walls, have our glass for added kind of just transparency, safety in the space, so we know where people are, who they're with, and all that kind of stuff. Most specifically related to our children's ministry and safety. All right, so we're going to get into the actual plans, and these are things that were drawn up. The image we saw here was, we just spent a little bit of dollars on getting that drawn up. Some more of these spaces will get visual treatments as well, as we seek to help people better understand how the space will look. These two-dimensional layouts are not the easiest to hold in our mind's eye exactly how they're going to look. And some of the spaces, like offices, are not easy to do in 3D renders because you got a lot of walls. But some of these spaces will make more sense in 3D. But to give you a sense here, our reason for this first floor space, we want to expand it, the offices for full-time staff. So you see you've got offices to the upper or to the east. Those offices and from the collaboration space and the conference counseling into the offices, I think, or no, I don't know if all 6 of those rooms, but those are currently where the meeting room on the first floor is, that's all the way towards the to the east. Currently there is confirmation happening there. We have our education meeting there. Lots of people have meetings there. It's the nicest meeting room in our building. And so one question obviously is, well, what happens to that space? Well, we want to make sure that the upstairs spaces, as well as some of the downstairs spaces that don't get a lot of use, are updated so that they are just as amazing as this space here. And so we will not only give people more options of places to be, but that space is very flexible for different types of uses. One of the biggest, just say here, that inside that office space now, where it says work area, that would be a very kind of flexible hotel kind of seating. So different people could come in and work at different times. The space could be used in different ways. So you could have a desk to come and sit at and work at for a little bit, or you could pull a couple tables together and work on a project or something like that. So it's going to be a little bit more flexible space for volunteers and part-time staff. There is a conference and counseling meeting room. And then above that to the north is kind of a collaboration space. So another meeting space that you could hold multiple meetings simultaneously within the office. The workroom would have the copier and supplies and that sort of thing. And then to the left corner where you see that oval actually represents kind of a ceiling fixture. But in that space would be a reception desk, a space that would allow either Kim, our office, I don't know what's Kim's title?
Pam?
Or sorry, Pam's title?
Office manager.
Office manager. So it would give her the ability to either be out there or have a receptionist that could work part-time, watching the desk, answering phones, etc. But also would give us a view of the space as people coming and going, place for people to check in, and part of the security of the space. And then the office to the north would be Pam's space where she could go and do things that she needs to work on and have concentrated time. The other things to note, so the library currently has a room going to the nursery, but in this drawing, we've kind of taken that out so that there's only one entrance or two entrances to the nursery, through the bathroom and through the hallway. And then the other piece that we're looking at is, if you look down at the very bottom left, there is our stairwell, our main entrance to the building, that wall that separates all those stairs, the stairwell going up to the second floor and down to the basement, some of that wall would remove so that you would be able to kind of see, or be able to know that there's a stairwell there, see how to get up to the second floor in that space, etc. Again, something that's harder to see in 2D when we've got 3 floors that could affect. Any questions on this space or any thoughts?
And Eric, one other just note, and it is in the sidebar, but there is also the addition of a single-use non-gendered restroom on this floor, and then the 2 current restrooms remain. So we add that single-use restroom to this floor also.
Correct. Sorry about that. I did stop short of that. All right. Well, we can always come back to this if there are questions. So here's the second floor. Second floor is primarily used Sundays for children's education. We have, if you look at the kind of left side, or the kind of middle left, we have the check-in area. Currently, that's a kind of a smaller hallway that goes into a small seating room. We want to open that up, make it a more kind of more welcoming and kind of useful check-in space. Has a little more space for people to stand or to come in and wait. And then you can see down below where the entrance is. There we put a glass door there, and we've got a meeting room to the south of the check-in that exists here. But we have removed one of the meeting rooms that are up there, and 2 bathrooms that are going to get shifted up to that upper left of that check-in space. So there can be 2 single-use, non-gendered restrooms there. And then the rooms themselves are fairly similar in size to what they are now, but with more flexible, those same flexible walls that we talked about that can be transparent and can be moved a little more seamlessly, a little more easily to move them, change the space up. And that check-in and opening would be the combined, or could be combined, for kind of larger gathering spaces, but even going into that first classroom on the south side. So you can just see the flexibility of what the space could become if we wanted to use kind of combined rooms. The then we can see kind of in the middle there, that hallway, there's some 6 dots. We're going to open up that hallway a little bit wider. And so those represent the pillars that are the structural pillars that will remain there. That'll just give a little bit more room for people coming and going around that space. And then we've got 2 more bathrooms located on the east side, so that if there's kids in classrooms over to that east side, it's not as far to go for them to go to the restroom. Again, we don't have as many kids moving all around or up and down the hallways. And yeah, I think that's everything up here. Any questions on this space?
Are there any water fountains on this or on either of the, or will those still be those next to the bathrooms? Or TBD?
That's a really good question.
Yeah, to be determined.
Okay.
But I believe though there is a water fountain next to the janitor's closet. Eric, if you want to point out where the janitor's closet is.
So I believe right
Yep.
here,
Yep.
where the current fountain
One
is.
is, yeah, okay.
I guess if we keep it there, then hopefully we can fix the door so the kids don't get smushed by the door when they're getting the drink. But
Yeah, I think the door
Yes.
comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it says.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember if that said that. All right.
we've not talked about that.
And then we have the basement. The basement, if you look kind of the south side, we'll go. The very south side is the youth space. We have multi-use youth and youth. Currently, there is the space to the left is smaller, and it's got a solid wall with 2 doors that you can go in and out of. This would kind of broaden that space. Would give us a retractable wall where you see that dark line here. I should use my pointer more. This wall would be retractable, again, making this space more flexible, and this would be updated with modern aesthetics and treatments and finishes. These are spaces.
That's the existing boiler room, and we're creating a new electrical room inside the boiler room.
Great. And then these meeting rooms up here are the same as they are, but again, make them more flexible with the retractable walls. We're working on storage spaces for AWE and other ministries. We've got to make sure, so none of these, how these are set up are set in stone yet. So we haven't gotten to the actual internal, like cabinets and fixtures and that sort of stuff. So we'll work with ministries to make sure that's enough space. We have thought about some other ways, storage spaces that we could use or expand into as well. So that's something we'll explore as we get into those. These 2 bathrooms here, there's currently 1 bathroom on there, right? And that will be changed into 2 non-gendered.
There's actually 2 bathrooms there, but it's being reconfigured.
And then over here, we currently have 2 bathrooms north of the fellowship hall, and we will be converting those into a number of single use. One of the things from our last conversation is that we do have a shower in the bathroom, the westernmost bathroom, and that was most recently, probably, I don't know how many years ago, but it was created through an endowment and served us through a number of ministries. It currently doesn't have a high amount of use, but there is a desire to maintain that or keep that as part of it. So whether this becomes 4 or 3, one of those being with the shower, maybe needs to be considered yet. Any questions on this level? Okay. Overall, I hope we want to just emphasize again that we want this to be as flexible a space as possible, as modern, as aesthetic as we have in our sanctuary. That we want kind of the experience of being here to feel congruent. That all of these spaces are clean and welcoming and bright and conducive to the ministries that we support and want to continue growing. There's 4 scopes that were part of the previous planning. I'll jump down. Well, scope A is the largest portion. It includes both the exterior and interior. I'm supposed to say interior and exterior work on the programming wing, the ministry wing of the building. Some of these were completed in 22-23, like the site drainage and the solar awnings and the windows. So all those things are like, even though we hit kind of a bump with the major remodel, things that we could keep doing and keep working on, knowing that they're important, we have. Scope B covers the solar panels on the roof, which requires roof replacement over the gathering area, and then the ministry wing. And then part of that will be adding insulation for better thermal performance. And then scope C, in the previous iteration, had to do with the canopy that would be constructed over the entrance, the main entrance to the church. For this project, we're removing that. And some of that reason is just being kind of a separate purpose, but also kind of the increase of costs that are going to be associated with the project with inflation, et cetera. So still, we don't have final numbers, but knowing that that's going to be the case. And then scope D is the restrooms on the north side of the fellowship hall. So going back to this picture, these 4 bathrooms are sort of their own scope in case we felt like that was could be done at a later time. And then to just give us a sense, so these are the numbers that we worked with previously. And we've got to get new numbers. We've got with our ideas that, things we might change. We need to get final numbers on these, which we don't have yet. But we know that there's probably going to be an increased cost around 30%. So our interior, the scope A exterior, which we talked about, it was $322,000. The scope A interior, which is the major remodel portion of the ministry wing, 2.3 to 2.7 million. And this is what do we talk about? Just this note down here, that the scope A and D costs have an asterisk because the HVAC system, depending on how that all works, could change that cost. Scope B is I didn't put scope C in here, which was the canopy, but scope B is the roof, and scope D is the bathrooms to the north side of the fellowship hall.
Yep, no, scope C was the canopy at the entrance.
Yep, and I took that out of here since we removed it from.
Yep. And that was about a $500,000 project, but was thought that that could be a separate project.
Any questions on anything that we've presented so far, or the numbers, or any other piece of this? Well, we certainly, again, encourage